Hey, Max Green, how's it going, man?
Hey, what's going on, man? I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. We finally made it happen.
I know, right?
Yep. Lives
Oh,
get busy sometimes.
yeah, dude. Fucking yeah, just getting busy and then getting wrapped up in real life shit, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh man, like I totally forgot. And
It's all
yeah.
good. It's all good. But I just thank you so much for being willing to hop on and talk to me, about
Oh
your band, Violent New Breed, and about yourself, man.
yeah, dude. Absolutely. Especially after just like you said, just like trying for so long. I'm like, I will make this happen.
I appreciate it so much. So, I
Yeah.
guess to start off, you want to tell me about the early years? When did you start getting into music?
Yeah. Absolutely. I can remember. Gosh, dude. For the longest time, ever since I was just a really, really little kid. I was growing up with my mom. My mom and dad divorced when I was super young. Probably still a baby. I don't even remember it. But so my mom and I lived at my grandparents' house. It was me, her, my grandma, my papa, and then my uncle Matt, which is her brother. And I'd spend a lot of time with my uncle Matt, and I can remember even from just being super young kid. He had like these big mirrors on his closet doors, and he'd play all this cool music, Metallica and Nirvana and everything that was coming out like in the early '90s and stuff from the late '80s, and I would just stand in front of this big mirror and sing along the songs or play air guitar and stuff like that, and then when I got older, my mom remarried and was married for a while, and then divorced again, and I had just we moved from Ohio to Pahrump, and then from Pahrump back and forth to Vegas, and moved to a lot of schools, so I didn't really have many friends, and that's when I feel like music really I really forged a lifelong connection from it at that point.
You think it's Vegas had a huge part to do with it?
Um, I think that growing up here, yeah, I think it did just because, I'll go back and I'll visit my family in the Midwest and stuff like that in Ohio and Kentucky. And, one thing I always hear from people is, oh man, like bands never come here,
Mm-hmm.
but, we have to drive. The closest bands come is, X amount of hours away or this many states away or this or that. So I think living in Vegas, having this be, it being Las Vegas, you know what I mean? Like an entertainment city. Being fortunate enough to catch a lot of cool shows and bands when I was growing up. Yeah, and just getting like kind of like engulfed in that, in that scene and that lifestyle.
Yeah. So, what kind of music did you listen to? Was it like the Metallica kind of stuff that you were saying?
Um, so I listened to really everything when I was a kid. When I was young, Metallica, Nirvana, they were Nirvana was new at that time, and releasing. I think probably had just released Nevermind, like not too long before I can remember it. But growing up here in Vegas, hmm, sorry, excuse me, I'm just finishing my
You
sandwich.
good?
I feel like growing up here in Vegas, the music I would listen to, I was fortunate enough to, get introduced to a lot of different kinds of music. And I remember when I first heard Thrice, I was like, what? Who is this band? Like they're screaming and fucking
Yep.
doing harmonies and this and that. I mean, before that, the only kind of music with cool guitar harmonies that I would really listen to was either Metallica or Iron Maiden. So I'd never heard a band do it in such a way as bands like Thrice would.
Yeah.
Um, and I just fucking loved it. And then everything from that to bands like Anti-Flag. Anti-Flag had a huge influence over me growing up when I was in high school. Just their bass player was just I had never heard anything like it at the time. Like the bass lines were so busy and cool and interesting and badass. and the guy did it with such style, and it was just it just fucking like captivated me.
So was bass guitar the first instrument that you picked up?
No, I was given a guitar when I was in 7th grade. I remember I had asked for a guitar because I was really getting into music. That was around that time. My parents were getting divorced or were on their way to, and around that time, I didn't have many friends. Like, music was my only friend, and so I had asked for a guitar for my birthday and for Christmas, and I even told my parents, like, you don't have to give me anything else. Just one present for both. That's fine. I just want a guitar. And the answer was no. And then my uncle came down for Christmas that year, and he didn't tell my stepdad or my mom, but he brought his guitar and his amp, and he just gave me his. And he didn't tell my parents because he knew that they would say no. So he just showed up with it in front of everybody and in front of me and gave it to me early. So that way they had to let me have it. It was really, really cool. And I dabbled on that for a little while, kind of picked it up now and then, put it down, picked it up, put it down, and then got serious about it my sophomore year of high school. That's when I started meeting other people who, had bands in high school and actually played music. And actually, I asked one of my buddies if he wanted to start a band, because I was like, hey, I have a guitar, like, we should play. And he actually had a band but had just lost their bass player. So he was like, well, hey, man, if you have rhythm, like, I have an extra bass at my house. Like, if you can follow along, like, you can be our bass player type thing. And I was like, okay, cool. And from then on, I just started learning bass.
That's awesome. So that kind of goes into my next question. How did you meet the whole band of Escape to Fate? Like, individually, I think it'd be kind of interesting to hear. How did you meet Monty Money specifically?
So, how I came to meet Monty was, at the time, I was graduated from high school at the time, and Ronnie and I were already friends at this point, and we were living together. But when I say living together, I basically mean, like, just crashing at all our friends' houses, but, like, we always just stuck together. You know what I mean? We were together every day. We would tell people, like, hey, we'd ask them if we could crash there, but we'd always say, well, hey, like, if you let me crash, then you have to let Ronnie crash there, or Ronnie would say, vice versa.
Right.
And so, yeah, one day we were hanging out at our friend Kenny's house. This dude named Kenny, it was his apartment, actually. And we had been playing music and, going to a lot of shows and hanging out with a lot of other musicians in Vegas. And we were writing songs on our own. And we got a phone call. And Kenny answered it, I believe, and handed me the phone. And it was Monty on the other line. And I still don't know how he got our phone number. I mean, we had some mutual friends. He probably got it from one of them. But, I mean, yeah, I don't think I ever really asked. Anyways, yeah, he called and was like, hey, is this Ronnie and Max? And I was like, yeah, what's up? This is Max. Who's this? And he told me it was, Monty Money. And I remember he said, hey, the word around Las Vegas is you guys aren't fucking around, and that you guys are starting a band, and it's going to be badass. That's and awesome. I was like, I mean, and it's funny because we would actually, go to parties and stuff and hang out, and Ronnie and I would, and, we'd always pick up a guitar and play it, and we'd always say, yeah, we're not fucking around, man. But yeah, so he called us and was like, hey, I heard you guys aren't fucking around, starting a band. He said, I'd love to, try out or play guitar for you guys or something like that. And so then he asked if we could meet up sometime, and we did, and that's how that came to be.
Yeah. He's still probably one of my favorite guitarists of all time. I think he's got some really good solos.
Yeah, honestly, mine too. He has, I feel like he has a really unique style, and like when he plays something, it's like it has like a signature to it. You know what I mean? Like, when you hear a guitar player, you're like, oh, that's a so and so riff or whatever. And I feel like that's how. I honestly, I feel like it really has nothing to do with even being in a band with him. I just feel like he really has his own kind of style and sound of playing, and that's really cool.
For sure. And how did you meet Robert Ortiz?
So that's a good one. So we went to the same high school. He was a year or two younger than me, and I remember we had I think we had guitar class together. And yeah, I think when I met him, I think I was a senior when I met him. I think either a senior or a junior, and so he was a freshman or a sophomore, and yeah, fucking. So we were in guitar class together, and he was this kid who would talk shit about anything if it wasn't Metallica. Like if it wasn't Metallica or Megadeth, he didn't like it, and he would talk shit about it. And I remember the band I was in at the time. We got to play our school lunch, like, in the quad or whatever. And I remember after that, like the next day, he was like, "Oh man, like, I watched your band. That was so cool. Blah blah blah. Here's he's like, I'm in a band too." And I was like, "Oh yeah." And he kind of came off cocky. I think he like said something about like how like, "Hey, I saw your band, but my band's way better." And I was like, who the fuck is this guy, man? Like, he talks shit about my music. Now he's fucking saying his band's better than mine. Yep. And after that, yeah, I actually went to one of his practices after a talent show, and their bass player left early, and so I was sitting there just watching them play and stuff, and I asked if I could just plug in and play along, and they were like, "Yeah," and so I did, and then like we all kind of looked at each other and was like, "Whoa!" Like, we all just clicked, and then from then we went from being like sort of like in competition with each other to being in a band together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm kind of unfamiliar with this guy. Like his name is Omar. He
was
from the early days. I don't really know anything about him, so it'd be kind of cool to know more about him.
Yeah. So Omar, he actually came along when Monty came along. When Monty called us on that day, he asked if. Sorry, he asked if we could meet up and this and that. I was like, all right, cool. And he was like, I play guitar. Do you guys have a full band or whatever? And I told him that, Ronnie sings and that we've been writing with Ronnie, playing guitar. I play guitar. Ronnie will write some drums on a keyboard. And, that's how we were just kind of like writing in the very beginning before we had a full band. And he was like, "Okay, well, I play guitar." And actually, he said, "I have a friend named Omar who I met online who plays guitar also, and he's really good, and I think it'd be great if he was in the band too, or he came with me, like you watched both of us." I said, "Okay, cool." And so we met up, and Omar just fucking like, man, like he was a totally different style than Monty. But he was just such a strong rhythm player, man, and he could also play like some leads too, and he was just great at like riffing, and he played with like passion, and like his right hand was just so steady. So I was like, shit, man, like I've already played bass in two other bands. Like if Omar's going to be in the band, like he can play guitar and I'll play bass, and it was funny because he actually offered to play bass, and I was like, no, it's cool, man, like I'll play, and that's how that happened.
All right.
And yeah, actually, he's originally from LA too. He used to be. It was neat because actually, when we met him, we thought he was really cool because he had already been in like one or two signed bands, and we're like, "Oh, no way! Like, you already signed to a record label and toured. Like, that's crazy." He had already put out an album, so.
Oh wow. So why didn't he stick with Escape to Fate?
It was just when the band in the early days, it was very volatile. All of our friends that were around us at the time, in the music business, our managers and merch guys and guitar techs and stuff like that, their there was like this running joke for several years that, Escape the Fate was like the band that never should have been, because we just came into so many problems and had so many issues, as a band and internally, that it was just a miracle that the band survived and lasted as long as it did and was able to put out the music that it did, because we were just train wrecks most of the time. And, Omar was a little bit older than all of us. Only by a few years, but I think like 2, maybe 3 years tops. And he was just like, at a certain point, he was just like, man, I just don't have time for this shit anymore. Like, we've been doing this for a couple years. Like, you guys need to get your act together, type thing. And I think that he had just had enough. He just wasn't having fun anymore, really. And so he was like, you know what, I'll play a couple more shows and then I'm going to catch a flight and I'm out of here.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So how did you meet Ronnie Radke?
We actually went to the same high school as well. Me and Ronnie and Robert all went to the same high school. And Ronnie used to hang out with we had like mutual friends in common. So a couple of my friends in high school that were older than me, they all used to like skateboard and shit. And so they were, started hanging out with like the skater crowd, and Ronnie was in that crowd. And so I had seen him around through, just like hanging out in like circles, in high school, like before the bell rings and stuff. And, he would be part of the same circle that I was in or whatever. And, vice versa. And, I'd also always see him doing crazy shit. Like, this was the era of like when Tom Green like ruled MTV, and like I can remember walking down the stairs and going down to the quad for like lunch or whatever, and seeing Ronnie jump out of a trash can with trash all over him, with a mustache sharpied onto his face, like a goatee. I think, I don't remember if it was a goatee or a mustache, and just like doing wild shit. And then I can also remember him in high school, being like the white dude in a crowd of like all like gnarly ass black dudes just fucking rapping and freestyling and all that shit. And yeah, so that's how I kind of knew of him. But I actually didn't meet him until after Robert and I met. Robert was in a band with Ronnie. And that's so we all tried out for the same talent show one year, his band and my band. And I remember Ronnie's microphone fell on stage, and like my band was kind of laughing at him, because it was kind of like this thing where it was like my band at the time was like, we were like the best band in the area, and then like they were the new band, like up and comers, like trying to make a name for themselves. And so like my band was just sitting there laughing at him or whatever, and so I went around and picked up his microphone and put it back together and set it up for him. And then afterwards they invited me to practice, and that was the practice that their bass player left early, and I plugged in and played with him, and he was like, dude, you gotta be in my fucking band, blah blah blah.
That's awesome.
And I was like, yeah, that was so much fun, like let's play that song again. And so that's how that came to be.
Which member did you drive with the most, you think?
Which member did I jive with the most?
Yeah. You were closest with? Yeah.
I mean, definitely Ronnie, man. I mean, we actually at one point lived right down the street from each other. And actually, when I was in high school, me and Robert lived right around the corner from each other. But yeah, after high school, my mom and I moved into this apartment down the street from my high school, actually. And I lived down one street and Ronnie lived down the other. And we would always meet up on the corner. And it was always weird because we'd always meet up on the corner at the exact same time. And we'd always be like, yeah, leave at 4:30 or leave at 4 and we'll meet there at 4:30. It's like, okay. And then, I would, of course, like not leave until like the last minute, and so would he. And we'd still always manage to meet up at the exact same time every single time. And yeah, we had the same birthday. I mean, we hit it off and got close really quick.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What was the first song that Escape the Fate was making? Like, you included Monty, Ronnie. What was the one collective song that was first being produced?
I feel like probably the first song that we like wrote and finished like as that lineup. Like not anything that we had, written before. I don't know. I feel like it might have been this song called "The Structure Falls," which is like an old song that never made it onto an album or anything like that. There is a recording of it on this really, really early thing that we did, which eventually led us to get signed to Epitaph, but we never released it or anything. It leaked somewhere, and it was going around for a while, for a little bit, but I'd say maybe either that one or, gosh, dude, I don't know. Might have been Dragging Dead Bodies, perhaps. I'm not sure. Yeah.
What's your favorite song off that album you guys made?
Off Dying Year's Latest Fashion?
Yes.
I really liked. I really, really liked the opening track, "The Webs We Weave." I liked that one a lot, and I can remember like that song never really like caught on with everyone, and I just thought it was such
song. I think it's the most like punk song on that album.
Yeah, I thought that was like the most like high energy, kind of in your face. Like, I mean, it opens up with that fucking dope little like drum fill, like and like I just thought that shit was sick, and had high energy, and the lyrical content I felt was really good because I mean it was very honest, and that was shit that Ronnie and I were doing and dealing with. So I just thought, yeah, that was one of my favorite songs. That one, and let's see, what else? Gosh, that's always hard because I feel like all those songs on that first EP and that first album, like there's really not one that I didn't like. Like, there's not a single song where I could say, I don't like that one very much, let's skip that one. Like, I really love all of them.
Yeah. So how did you react? Because like your best friend went to prison. How did you and the whole band react initially?
Well, initially we were freaking out because we got a call from a friend saying that Ronnie and some of our friends, they went out to the desert because we knew they were going out there. We knew they were going out there to fight. I got invited out there, and I was like, dude, I'm not fucking going. Like, that's dumb. Like, I don't give a shit what these people are saying about talking shit about us or the band. Like, I don't care. I'm not going out there to fight some idiots. And yeah, we got a call, I think from our friend Mike Beebe was his name, saying that they were out there, yeah, and they got in a fight, and that someone got shot, or a couple people got shot, and someone died, and I mean, it was, yeah, we like initially like went into shock. Like, it was difficult to process. You know what I mean? We were like, wait, what? Like, yeah, someone got shot. And, like, Ronnie was involved. Like, our singer, our best, one of our best friends. Like, what the hell? Yeah,
and it happened right when your band was taken off too.
Mm-hmm. And but and then I remember very quickly, we were all very upset and angry because we all felt like, great, like this is the end of this, and we all told him not to go, and we all told him just who cares, let it go, it doesn't matter, it's not that big of a deal. And so then we were all very angry and upset because we felt like it was just that he wasn't thinking about it, he wasn't thinking about us, is how we felt. Mm-hmm. And then, like, after everything went down and everything really sunk in, and we heard the charges and everything else like that, I mean, it was followed by, fear, fear of, I mean, lots of different things. Fear of what's going to happen to him. fear of what's going to happen to us. Fear of, is this going to continue now? Like, are we going to be targeted next? Just a lot of that shit.
You grew up with Ronnie, and you probably know him super well. And I've been watching him for a long time, and it seems like he's very sensitive about like people like criticizing him and stuff. You think that that's an issue that he has, just being sensitive?
Yeah, that was one thing that we all knew about Ronnie from the very beginning, was that he it's weird, like when you say sensitive, it kind of makes like one assume like, oh, like he's sensitive about this, like he's like you might think like, oh, this person's just like a baby about this, or overreacts about this for like a silly reason. But in Ronnie's case, like he was sensitive about certain things, but I feel like for him, it's literally because he cared so much. I think because he had so little at some points, and like what he had, what he was involved in, he really put his all into. And so I think that's why he was, sensitive about the band or music or, his style and, whatever at the time.
Yeah. I kind of connect with him on some sort of level, because what happened to him and his mom, that whole situation, is like exactly like what happened to me and my mom. And like the way that he acts and reacts towards like even people on Twitter, like he'll always like be upset with like a ex fan that like hates him now or something stupid like that. Like I kind of get that. Like I'm sensitive about people that dislike me. It's like, why do you dislike me? I didn't do anything to you. So.
Yep, I feel that way. Yep, exactly.
But there's something about bass players, man. Everyone loves bassists. Like you're probably one of the most liked people from the Escape the Fate lineup. What do you think it is about bassists that are so likable? Every band,
I don't know.
The bassist is badass. Why is that?
That's a good question. I have no idea. Yeah, I don't know. No one's ever really said that to me before. No one's ever said.
But it makes sense though, right?
This. Yeah, it kind of does actually. I mean, I'm thinking back of like a lot of the bands that I toured with, and yeah, like that's one thing. A lot of the other bass players and stuff that I've hung out with they're all actually really nice guys.
Yeah.
Like they're not too overly, aggressive or mean or sarcastic. I mean, they're all just kind of like just nice people.
Yeah. But yeah. So how did you meet Craig Mabbitt?
Well, we did Craig was on or when Escape the Fate was on Warped Tour, and I remember our manager was like, hey, we're planning a tour. I don't know if it was like for next year or for later that year, but he was like, he wanted us to go around Warped Tour and watch a lot of the other bands and like everyone make a list of like 5 bands that we want to tour with. And so we went out, like watched all those bands, put down who we liked, and he would just kind of go down the list with us and say, well, hey, like, this band is just, they're way too big for you right now. You know what I mean? Type thing. Like you got to work your way up to that level. Or, oh, this band is cool, blah, blah, blah. Let's see if they're free. Oh, they're not free. And so Bless the Fall happened to be free. Craig was in Bless the Fall. So we put together the Black on Black tour. Yeah, and that was it.
Nice. Did you were you pretty good friends with Craig?
Yeah, we we hung out a few times on Warped Tour. We'd go over there and watch their set, or he'd come over and watch ours with some of his dudes, and we'd be like, hey man, like, because I think at the time they were in a tour van, and And so, we'd be like, well, hey man, why don't you, come on our bus and hang out and this and that. And, if it gets too late or whatever else, like, just call your band and tell them like you're going to ride with us to the next city or whatever. And, so we did shit like that. And I can remember at one point, he was like, man, he's like, I can't ride on your bus anymore. We're like, why? He's like, my band's getting mad that I could just sleep in a bus and like they have to drive the van every night and blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, okay.
Mm. So what made you want to diverge from Escape the Fate?
What do you mean what made me want to diverge from Escape the Fate?
Like when you left Escape the Fate to do Violent New Breed? Was it just musical differences, or you just wanted to do your own thing, or?
Well, I left. Originally, I left when I went to rehab back in the day. After Ronnie left, Ronnie and I were known for being the party boys in the band, and that kind of stuff was like encouraged for us at the time. Like, the label liked it and the management liked it. And, we were, like Rocks knew, and like the scenes knew like Bad Boys or whatever type thing. Like we were, dangerous and shit. And like, so, we just, kind of had like a fucking green light to just act wild all the time. And then after Ronnie left, I went to prison or whatever. The whole band didn't know what we wanted to do anymore, and I had just felt like I lost like I lost like my right arm and my right leg or something. Like I literally like lost, like my brother. I didn't even get to talk to him. And so like I was depressed for a while. So, I just dove in deep into, doing drugs on the road even more, and just, it went from being like an occasional party thing to doing it all the time, trying to just, being able to fake putting on a smile, going on stage, playing these songs that, my best friend, that we wrote together, and he's not there anymore. So, I had originally left back in the day because of, my issues with substance, and then the band had gotten signed to a major label. And up until that point, we had all agreed to split profit equally. And then once we signed to a major label, and we found out what kind of money that they had and what kind of money we were getting, I remember Monty wanted to get his little brother in the band to play guitar because Omar was gone. And, we had taken him out a few times, but we didn't want him actually in the band. And it was shitty because then he was like, well, if he's not going to be in the band, then I'm going to quit. And like kind of strong-armed us. We had really no choice but to say, okay. And then at that point, we're, like I was saying, like we signed to this major label, getting a big chunk of money. Our albums are doing really well up until that point. So the label has a lot of faith in us. And then the other guys see how much money they can make if we don't split everything equally anymore. Like if instead of everyone writing songs together, if Monty and his brother just write songs, then they can get a lot more money than the rest of us. And so it was shitty, and it kind of led to, there being issues on the road where we weren't even really friends. We would get off stage and none of us would talk.
Oh, wow.
We'd walk past each other on the bus and, not say a word.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was, pretty bad, which again, and that right there kind of just led me to being more miserable and depressed on the road. Cause now I'm sitting there feeling like, what happened? Like what happened to this beautiful thing that, Ronnie and I created? Like now he's not even here. And here I am stuck with these people that feel like strangers now.
Mm. Yeah. So when did you go over to, and what made you go over to Falling in Reverse? Because you joined Ronnie for how long? Was it like 6 months, a year, or something like that?
It was just a couple tours. So Ronnie had called me up one day and was like, "Hey, I had some issues with my bass player. Um, do you want to join my band?" And I was like, "What? Holy shit!" And I had just rejoined Escape the Fate. And we did the I think we did the Bury the Hatchet tour at this point, and it was really cool. And then Escape the Fate and I was with them, and we went on to do this tour with Five Finger Death Punch and Miss May I, and I think the other band was called Gemini Syndrome. And I was trying to like stay straight and sober and clean everything on the road. I would drink occasionally now and then. Not because I ever had a problem with drinking, just because I, didn't want to, drink and then all of a sudden like think it'd be a good idea to go try to like score some pills or something. And shit. So I remember we were doing this tour with Five Finger Death and Miss May I, and everyone was just acting fucking wild, and some dumbass shit happened, and we ended up like dropping off the last couple weeks of this Five Finger Death Punch tour, which was like a small arena tour. Like we were playing just like these huge like hockey rink, type places or whatever else, like these like these arenas. And I remember we canceled the last 2 weeks of the tour, and I was like, dudes, like, are you guys serious right now? Like, this is dumb. Like, you guys are canceling it for a dumb reason. And they made it very clear to me at the time that I have no say in what their decision is going to be, and that I need to remember I'm the new guy now. And it was just one of those moments where I was like, wow, okay, well, that's fucked up. And like, I was sitting there looking at everyone and being like, damn, it was one of those moments where I was like, fuck, like how the tables have turned. Like, I was the wild guy, and now everyone else is acting fucking wild and canceling shit. And I'm sitting here going, come on, like, think about it, like, think straight. And so after that, like, we all went home, and then, Ronnie gave me a call and said, hey, having problems with my bass player. You want to join the band? And I was like, well, I have this Escape the Fate tour that I've committed to, but I'm not actually even in the band. Like, I'm literally just a hired guy. And I was touring with them for free, basically. And so I said, well, after this tour, like, sure. And he was like, okay, cool. But then at the last minute, he was like, I don't know if I feel comfortable, like, you like trying to learn all these Falling in Reverse songs while you're on tour with them. Like, that's just going to be weird. So yeah, he was like, I need you to cancel their tour, or, not let them know that you can't go with them. And just, if you're going to be in Falling in Reverse, just come to Falling in Reverse, just crash at my place until we do this tour and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay, and at the time, like, I weighed out all my options and everything else like that, and I was like, man, I'm not even in Escape the Fate. A couple of the guys were treating me like shit, and I wasn't getting paid. And then I've got Ronnie over here, being very nice, offering to pay me. And so that seemed like the right move at the time, Yeah.
Did you enjoy being with Falling in Reverse more than Escape the Fate?
It was interesting, man. I definitely enjoyed being back on stage with my best friend, 100%. And I definitely enjoyed being on stage with his band, because, dude, they were fucking professionals, man. Like, they were all really good players. They all knew their instruments. They knew how to set everything up, and if they didn't, if they were having a problem with something, their techs could figure it out. It was like a perfect example of like how a professional touring band like should be run, and like that was great. I fucking loved it. but it was. I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say like there wasn't some moments here and there where it was just like, wow, like this is fucking weird. Like, you know, he wrote that first album about, you know, me and Escape the Fate, and here I am like playing like some of those songs.
That's funny.
You know.
How did you like the first album with Escape the Fate compared to like the sequels of that? Because like the first album was very like post-hardcore kind of, and then the second albums were like almost like 80s like Motley Crue kind of sounding metal. What's more your style? What did you enjoy playing more?
Oh man. You know, I really liked the EP and the first album a lot, and we did both of those with this guy named Michael Basquette. He's like super good, super solid producer. And I really liked working with him because I feel like like even though people say like, oh, you guys had like this post-hardcore blah 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 sound or whatever, like even though like some people say that, like I feel like they say that because they don't know where else to like put us.
Yeah,
because we were
real
black
category for you guys.
Yeah, because like, and up until we came out, like no one sounded like us, and we didn't sound like anyone else. We fucking hit the ground running, and then after that, a lot of bands came out and they were like, you know, like you could tell people would go, oh, they sound like Escape the Fate, and like, you know, so I really liked that first record a lot because of that aspect. And even, you know, after when we did This War Is Ours, like I still enjoyed a lot of those songs. Like working with John Feldman, you know, I learned a lot, and I feel like I really grew as a musician. And when we did the third album, the self-titled one, that was kind of a weird experience for everybody. That was when we signed to a major label and things were changing up, and no one really knew how to handle it, or they didn't handle it the right way, and it was just kind of weird overall. But I feel like after that second album, some of the guys, that's when like the writing switched up to, you know, it just being wanting to be Monty and his brother doing all the writing. And I feel like the band kind of struggled with their identity. Like here we were like moving up in the world, having a, you know, huge fan base, or not huge, but our fan base was growing like noticeably. And we wanted bigger and better things. So yeah, I think the band was having like an identity crisis where it didn't know how to evolve into like the next thing. And so yeah, it was just kind of weird. But you know, I definitely the EP and the first two albums more than anything that came after that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So be honest with me. That Bury the Hatchet tour, did that actually bury the hatchet between like Ronnie and Craig and, you know, both of the bands?
Oh yeah, honestly, yeah. Because I remember when that idea came about, I was living in Ohio, and me and Ronnie were in contact or whatever, and he was like, "Hey man, like I want to do this tour. It's with Escape the Fate, but the only way I'll do it is if you're there. Like otherwise, like it just won't work." He's like, I want to have you like, you know, come out, you know, ride on my bus with my band, and you know, Escape the Fate will play, or there'll be an opening band, and then Escape the Fate will play, and then Falling Universe will play. He's like, and then we'll do like a 3 or 4 song encore set, and like you'll walk out, and you know, we'll just play stuff off Dying Age Latest Fashion, and then like that'll be it. But like you'll only play like the encore, but it'll be like a cool thing where we'll have like the old backdrops up and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I was like, fuck yeah.
That's awesome.
And then yeah, so like, but I mean, then after that, like, you know, Escape the Fate, they ended up, you know, Monty ended up quitting, and they came through Ohio, and I went out to the show and watched them, and like we all got along. So it was like a little while later, a couple months later or something, they were like, well, hey man, like, you know, we fucking lost Monty. TJ's gonna play rhythm. We've got a lead guitar player. You know, do you want to come back and play bass? So it just kind of so happened where it was like, oh, like when we go to do Bury the Hatchet, I'm already going to be playing with Escape the Fate. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, but it was cool, man. I mean, like, dude, like we were all, you know, we all hung out on each other's buses and, you know, played video games. Like it was good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Do you think the hatchet is buried between Ronnie and Monty? It seems like there's some still anger or some issues back and forth still.
I don't think it'll ever be buried, to be honest.
So what's the actual issue, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, remember how I was telling you that when we got signed to a major label, at the time, you know, Monty was really trying to get his brother in and kind of like strong-armed us a little bit to like getting his brother to be a band member.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, he put himself in a position to say, oh, well, only we're going to write the music and only we're going to split the music publishing. We're like, okay. So those are both pretty shitty things. And Monty admits it now. I mean, he knows, and him and I have talked, and he's apologized a million times for the way he acted back then. And, you know, I've apologized for how I acted too. But Ronnie just kind of saw that kind of shit coming from early on, and he just didn't like trust him or whatever. Thought he was kind of shitty. So yeah, he just didn't like him anymore.
Mm. So how would you feel about? I even brought this up too. I actually did an interview podcast with Michael Money, Monty's brother.
Okay.
Like about 2 months ago, and I asked him the same question. How would you feel about doing like a Escape the Fate reunion tour? Like everybody from the original Escape the Fate. So like you go with your band as Violent New Breed. Monty and Michael, they go as Beyond Unbroken, and Escape the Fate goes, and Falling in Reverse go. Like, would you be up for that kind of a tour where everyone just goes back in?
Oh, would I?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, dude. I think that would be a lot of fun. That would be really cool to like kind of, you know, see everyone's like branched off, you know, little projects and shit.
Yeah, for sure. Did you catch Monty's Beyond Unbroken's new song, Silver Spoon?
Mm-mm.
Well, that idea that I just had about the reunion tour, you know, that song kind of shoots it out of the sky, because that song is about all the Escape the Fate stuff. And actually, I don't know if you saw Ronnie Radke's Popular Monster music video. He turns into a werewolf.
Oh yeah.
In the Silver Spoon, Monty Money beheads a werewolf.
Oh my! Shut up.
Yeah, it's pretty dope.
I just looked it up, and like the thumbnail picture is Monty holding the head of a fucking werewolf. So I'm gonna watch this after we get off the phone.
Yeah, you know, I hope for the best of, you know, everybody from the original band. You know, I love all the members. You guys are all really talented people. You know.
Thank you.
Nothing but success. But so tell me about Violent New Breed now. I know that you started out as the lead singer. How was that? That was the first time you've ever been like a lead singer for a band.
Yeah. Fucking. So how that, you want to know how that came to be? Sorry, you kind of broke up a little bit when you asked that.
No, you're good. So how did you enjoy being the lead singer over just playing bass initially?
Oh, dude. Fuck, man. Honestly, I absolutely loved it. I fucking loved it, dude. I loved it. Can't say that enough.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, yeah, when I started that or whatever, like, I just was like, man, like, you know, I had this cool name for a band, and originally, like, I had started a side project called the Natural Born Killers with my buddy Clayton.
Yep.
We were writing all these dope songs, and It just, I don't know, it didn't work out. Wrong time, wrong place, wrong people. And so I was like, well, fuck, and after I, left Escape, I was like, I want to still do something. And so I had, discovered the name Violent New Breed, branded it as a band name, and started writing songs. And my bass player at the time, this guy named Brent, he introduced me to this other guy named Mikey who played guitar. We moved in together. He started staying at this studio that I was staying at. So we would just write music all the time. And, originally we hadn't planned on me being the singer. Like, I never planned on being the singer at all. And so Mikey and I go to record our EP down in Georgia with some of my friends. And so we get all the music done, and the guys like my friend Josh and Lee were like, all right, well, when's the singer get here? Does he fly in tomorrow? Like, what's up? And we're like, actually, like, the singer that we had, it didn't actually end up working out, and so we don't have a singer. And they were like, but you guys are in the studio. Like, what are you gonna do? And I was like, I don't know, man. Fuck it. Like, I'll just see what happens. I'll just go in there and sing and see what happens. They're like, all right, fuck it. Let's do it. And so we did. And I had already had like a bunch of lyrics written out and a bunch of melodies. So, I would just read them to them, and they helped me kind of piece things together. Or, they just did what any producer would do. Hey, I really like this part. This part would be cool if maybe you said this instead, blah, blah, blah. And, we just went in there and did it. And they really helped me out by, being like, well, how do you want to sing this? And I would tell them, like, dude, I have no idea. Like, all I did in Escape to Fate was, scream and, maybe cover some vocals here and there, like if Craig was sick or whatever. And so, yeah, so I just ended up going in there and winging it and doing it, and it actually worked. I mean,
the EP was good.
Yeah, we did it. We just went and did it, and like, the whole process, like whenever there was, parts or whatever where they were like, because it was like a really good learning experience for me as well, because they were like, they'd go in there with like a keyboard, like, vocal guide track, and they'd say, this is where you were, and like these are the notes you need to hit and where you need to hit them. So it really helped me out a lot. But touring live as a singer is fucking crazy. I mean, it's one thing to have your bass on and run around stage and get crazy like I do, but it's another thing to fucking run around stage and entertain everybody while fucking singing the entire time. Like, it is fucking crazy. And I ended up like hurting my throat a lot on that tour, just because like I didn't, I had never toured as a singer before. I mean, I loved it so much, but I think out of all the shows, I don't even remember how long the tour was. I know it was at least a couple weeks, but I would say probably 80% of those shows, dude, I was not going on stage 100%, like not even close. I definitely had some really good shows. I had like 4 or 5 really solid shows where, even my band would come up to me and they'd go, dude, like tonight you killed it. Like, you were hitting notes, you were hitting harmonies. Like, it sounded really, really good. But then the next night, we're playing, and, we were one of the opening bands. So you have to go on stage with the headliner's gear still on the stage, and you have like no room sometimes. You're standing right in front of a monitor. Literally you've got a kick drum like touching your feet behind you, and so I'm sitting there, screaming into this mic and just destroying my throat some nights. And then, I'll have 2 or 3 shitty shows, following that because I hurt my throat the night before.
Right.
But I mean, it was definitely one of those things where, I've seen Ronnie go through that when we first started touring. I've seen Craig go through that. I think it's just one of those things that you learn, as any kind of, vocalist in a band.
Yeah. So is that why you as a band decided to get a new lead singer for the For the Bad Reputation album?
No, originally it was going to be me still, and we were only going to we were only going out there to record an EP. I think we were only going to go do like 3 or 4 songs, and then like we got out there and recorded them. We were working with a producer, this guy named Sean McGee. We just had great chemistry. We hit it off. He's like, "Well, fuck it, let's do another song." I'm like, "Hey, let's do another song." And then, at one point he was like, "Well, hey, you guys need another guitar player, right?" And we're like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Dude, like I'm having so much fun, writing these songs with you and recording them." He's like, "Why don't I join the band, and then we'll just do an album, and like I won't, you can just pay me for the first 4 or 5 songs or whatever." I was like, "Okay, cool." And then the stuff we wrote together after that was just a lot different than the songs that I wrote on the Violent New Breed EP. A lot of people said they had like an old school like Escape the Fate feel to them.
Yeah.
And that was a lot, easier for me to sing over, because it was like less technical vocals and just kind of more passion, more character. The stuff on the Bad Reputation CD like calls for someone who actually knows how to sing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Were you guys looking to find like a 3 Days Grace kind of sound? Because I bet you get that a lot, don't you? From the last lead singer you had.
Mm-hmm. No, that's literally just how he sings, man. He just he grew up in Indiana, very Midwest. Bands like that are fucking huge out there. And he just, practiced a lot to like those radio rock bands. And that's where like his voice felt comfortable. And that's just how he sounds, man. Like he did not try to sound like that. We didn't tell him to sound like that at all.
Yeah.
He just kind of came out like that.
He's a really good singer. I really did enjoy that album.
Thanks. I mean, yeah, I thought it was good.
Yeah. So what's going to happen now? Now that you're looking for a new lead singer, I saw on Instagram you were making some posts about it. Did you successfully find a new lead singer?
So we've been doing this show with my buddy Bobby. He's got a show on Twitch called the Space Zebra Show. And Bobby is one of the owners of Blackcraft. And he normally hosts his show with him, Wes Borland from Limp Bizkit, and this guy named Josh Balls, who used to play keyboard in Motionless in White, and then producer Jake. And Wes has been out on tour doing his thing or whatever, so it's been, Bobby and Josh, and then this other guy joined in, Bees. And, I remember Bobby had come out to Vegas one weekend, and I was like, well, hey, man, like, let's fucking, catch up and, like, grab lunch. He's like, okay, cool. So we're sitting there talking, and he's like, he's like, what's up with your band, man? He's like, you should come on the show. Like, we have, unsigned artists or this or that days. He's like, we'll find something to fit your band in. And I was like, shit, man. I was like, not unless you want to do a fucking Space Zebra singer search. And he was just like, bro, what? You need a singer? He's like, dude, that's a crazy idea. Like, that's so cool. Like, yeah, let's fucking do that. I was like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, let's fucking do that. And so, we just put it together and started taking like submissions. The first episode was a little rocky because I think people didn't know what to expect. But after that, like, the submissions just started fucking rolling in like crazy. And there's a lot of good people. And like we've narrowed it down now to like the final like 3 or 4. And I think we're actually going to stop taking submissions like in another week or maybe 2 at the most.
Nice. I know. I also did another interview with Damon Horrell. He's the Eerie Weather. He posted that he did an audition for you as well.
Yeah, man, he's a nice guy, dude. I met him a couple years ago when he was actually in Monty's band, and they had flown me out there from Seattle to work with them on a song in the studio. I was like, oh yeah, I was like, fuck yeah, man, like that'd be cool. And yeah, Damian was in the band with him at that time, and that's how we met. And then yeah, we just like exchanged numbers, became friends, and he would send me stuff every now and then, and ask for my thoughts on songs or parts. And then when we announced the singer search thing, he asked if he could try out. I was like, of course you can. Like, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, is there any news or anything that you want to tell your fans?
Let's see here. Just right now, man, it's we're just finishing these last couple auditions. Like I said, anyone who wants to submit, like there's still time. We've got about 2 more weeks. And then after that, we are not taking any more submissions. But we do have plans to. We've got a couple of songs that we've got a bunch of songs that are ready to record, but we've got, a handful of them picked out. We're just going to be recording them one at a time and releasing them. And then, just getting ready. Want to get ready to start playing shows again, man, as soon as we lock in like this last piece of the puzzle.
Nice. What genre do you think your next album will be, if you were to call it?
Okay, so the first 2 songs that we demoed out, like we've been using these as like audition tracks for like the vocalists and stuff. And like they're both pretty heavy. One is a little heavier than the other. Like so far everything we're doing in this band is on a 7-string. It's an A. And I think maybe like a couple of songs might be in G. I'm not sure, but they're heavier. Most definitely. But like recently, like it's almost kind of evolved a little bit where we're like incorporating like more like synths and stuff like that, just for like atmosphere, like nothing like too over dramatic or too overbearing. But and like we've been writing like these really big choruses. Like the other day I was telling Gary, I was like, this song that we're writing, or basically that he was writing, I was telling like it gives me this vibe of like Linkin Park, like if Linkin Park was like metal. Like it's so cool to me. But yeah, so I mean it's definitely like, because like Garrett and his drummer like come from like the metalcore world, like big time, and like they write and play like a lot of really really cool impressive shit. And then I come in with like my background and kind of pull everything back a little bit, or like polish parts, like rearrange them a little bit, and it's got kind of like that fucking almost pop punk, a little bit in there, like not pop punk sound, but just like pop punk like format or structure type thing, and just like a little bit of like mainstream, and it's just evolving into this really cool sound.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But I thank you so much for hopping on and talking with me, and I'm so glad that we made it happen. And I cannot wait to hear what you put out next.
Dude, thanks very much, man. I cannot wait to release this stuff, man. I think that everyone's gonna be surprised. They're gonna be like, "What the fuck is this? This is sick, dude."
Awesome, man. I cannot wait.
Yeah. Well, right on with thing. Yeah. Thanks very much for having me on, man.
Absolutely, Max. Thank you so much.